Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Rashard Snellings. I am with the South Fulton Coalition. Today we have our Superior Court judges, Judge Whitaker, as well as Judge Pitts. Now, just to let you know a little bit about the South Fulton Coalition, our mission is to implement action programs for the continued improvement, accountability, and integrity of the city of South Fulton, as well as Fulton County government and elected officials. Today we have Judge Pitts here, as well as the incumbent Judge Whitaker. The way we're going to do this is we're going to allow 3 minutes for opening remarks for each candidate, and after the opening remarks, we're going to turn it over to the public so that the public may ask you any questions that you both may have. Now, before we get started, this is a special event for us because we don't typically do the judges. And I know that there are certain things that are off limits that judges cannot talk about because of different cases. So if both of you can just let us know if there's anything that is just off limits that we cannot discuss.
Happy to do that.
Okay. So is there anything off the top of your head that you could think of that we know?
So anything that might come before a judge is something that we are not allowed by the Code of Judicial Conduct to talk about.
Okay.
So,
and Judge Pitts, would you agree with that statement?
Oh, yes, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I'm being respectful. So thank you so much. At this time, I would like to turn it over to, we'll start with you, Judge Pitts, for your opening remarks. You have 3 minutes. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, you caught me trying to send a message in the Zoom. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Judge Allison Pitts. I was raised with 3 brothers and 1 sister by a single mother who worked in the judicial system. During my school years, I used to spend off days and half days working, visiting her rather at work. I now realize that this experience gave me a foundation to represent clients as an attorney and to manage cases as a judge. It also taught me that being faithful to the law requires the understanding that there must be fairness and justice for all our diverse communities. After graduating from Wayne State University, I chose to move to Atlanta, and a few years later, I graduated from West Virginia University College of Law. I started my career as a law clerk for the Honorable Gail S. Tucson, right there in Fulton County Superior Court. A year later, I began my private practice, primarily as a criminal defense and family law attorney. Now, for the past 15 years, I have served as an associate judge in East Point Municipal Court, 5 years as a pro hat judge with the City of Atlanta Municipal Court, and 3 years as a visiting and later a part-time judge in Fulton County's Juvenile Court. I am an active member of Ben Hill United Methodist Church, where I serve as an usher. I sing in the Majestic Choir, and I serve as co-chair of our legal ministry. I'm a member of the Metro Atlanta Lions Club, the South Fulton Running Partners, and an active member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm a board member of the Carrie Steele Pitts Home, where I volunteer helping out where I can and mentoring the residents. During COVID, it's been limited, but I have been of service in this community since moving here more than 30 years ago, from the King Center to the Sickle Cell Foundation to Habitat to the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys, where I've served as their 19th president. I have been endorsed by local leaders, people who are intimately connected to our communities, such as Mayor Ingram of East Point and its former mayor, Patsy Jo Hilliard, former mayor of the city of South Fulton, William Edwards, pastors like Reverend Walter Kimbrough, Richard Wynn, Anthony Motley, A.L. Milner, Timothy McDonald, Gerald Durley, and Dr. Thomas Best. City council members like Keisha Waits and Marcy Overstreet in Atlanta, Karen Renee and Sharon Shropshire of East Point, Carmelita Gums and Helen Willis of the city of South Fulton, and Linda Davis in Fairburn. And then business and civic leaders like Jan Bryson and Thomas Dortch. They have put their trust and support behind me because of my connection to and commitment to serving our communities. I'm a daughter, a sister, an aunt, godmother, friend, and mentor who cares about people and who is dedicated to being a public servant. So that's who I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I would like to turn it over to you, Judge Whitaker. You have the floor. You have 3 minutes.
Great.
Your opening remarks. Thank you so much.
My name is Judge Paige Reese Whitaker, and I want to thank all of you for taking the time and for giving me this opportunity to talk a little bit about myself and about my service to Fulton County. I am proud to serve as your current elected Fulton County Superior Court Judge. I was last elected to this position in 2018, and I am here before you now asking for your continued support and your vote for my re-election on May 24th. A little bit about myself. I am the very first person in my family to ever graduate from college. So it is an incredible honor for me to be able to serve my fellow citizens as an elected Fulton County Superior Court Judge. I graduated from Duke Law School on a scholarship, and I have lived right here in Fulton County for the last 30 years. And I have worked here in Fulton County as well. I am a wife and a working mother in addition to being a judge. And I want the same things that you want from our community and from our government. I want a safe and a thriving community. I want fairness and equity. And I want our institutions and the people who serve in them to act with integrity. I've worked in public service for my entire career, for the state of Georgia and for the Fulton District Attorney's Office before serving as a judge. And I will continue to bring experience, integrity, and fairness to my service as a Fulton County trial court judge. It is my experience, my integrity, and my fairness that is the reason I am endorsed by Chief Justice Leah Ward Sears, who is the first female to have ever served on our Georgia Supreme Court and the first African-American female to have ever served as the Chief Justice of any state Supreme Court in the entire nation. My fairness, my experience, and my integrity is also why I am endorsed by Chief Justice Harold Melton, who is our most recent African-American Chief Justice of our state Supreme Court. I am also proudly endorsed by Governor Barnes, our last democratically elected Democrat governor, and by Governor Deal, as well as by dozens of elected leaders at the national, the state, and the local levels. I invite you to look at my website, keepjudgewhitaker.com, for a more full list of all of the elected officials and leaders who have endorsed me, and the lawyers and members of the general public who are supporting me on my campaign. And I believe that they support me for re-election to the highest trial court in Fulton County because they know that I will continue to serve Fulton County with fairness, with experience, and with integrity. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, just as a reminder to the audience, please use the reaction option and raise your hand if you have a question. Our first question comes from Ron Booth with the South Fulton Coalition. Mr. Booth, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. This question actually comes from Marcia Steele. She typed it into the chat, and the question is for both candidates. She'd like to know if you would voice your opinion about the leak coming from the Supreme Court with reference to Roe versus Wade.
And
Sure.
Will you call on each of us, or does one of us?
Yes,
just...
I'll call on you.
Okay.
So Judge Whitaker, you can have that question first.
Sure. So, I think that we need to keep in mind that at this point, it's just a leak. No opinion has been issued yet. And it is entirely possible now that we have Justice Jackson with us on the court that the case will actually be re-argued and resubmitted. But it's also important to keep in mind for this particular election that if the opinion comes out exactly as the leak was, any Superior Court judge is not going to be the person or the court with the ultimate decision making about the issue and everything swirling around it, that would go to the Georgia Supreme Court. I think the leak itself is something that is obviously going to be investigated, but at this point, that's about all I can say. We need to, I think, wait and see what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Judge Pitts, would you like to take that question as well?
Sure. The question is, how or why it was leaked. And while we can't speculate on that, there could have been a reason based on the things that are going on within the country in terms of possible charges that are coming through the courts. But, I believe, like Judge Whitaker, that because there's a leak, there could be something that's going back, and once everyone gets on board with the Supreme Court, that case could be revisited. So I'm not sure if there's much more to add, but there's a lot of questions about how or why it was leaked and whether it was intentional.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for answering that question. Now we have a hand raised for Delavia Cameron. Ms. Cameron, did you still have a question?
Not unless it's going to be repeated to them, but I do have a question while I have both candidates on the phone. My name's Delavia Cameron, and I'm the CEO and founder of Mirror Mirror 90. We help family members that have lost loved ones to gun violence. Yet, since my daughter's murder in 2015, we realized there's a high caseload of families that are still not getting the proper service. We also realize that it's a high turnaround of advocates. So what do you feel is a suggestion of what can be done to help these families so we're not re-traumatized by the court system, because it's injustice for us?
And is that question for both judges?
Yes.
All right, we'll start with you, Judge Whitaker. You have the floor.
Sure. First of all, I am sorry for your loss and for the loss of anybody who loses a loved one. That is a tragedy. And it is compounded when things do not move in a timely manner through the court system. I believe that our new district attorney is making efforts to try to look at all of the cases that were in the office when she came in the office. Obviously, COVID has not helped our situation because for a year, we were unable to hold jury trials. And one thing that the Fulton Superior Court does, I mentioned it was our highest level trial court, is we conduct jury trials. That's something that a magistrate court does not do and that a municipal court does not do, but that a superior court does do. I will say that for my particular docket in 2021, when we were in the height of COVID, the judges on my court handled an average or disposed of an average of 199 criminal cases that year. And my court actually was able to resolve 307 criminal cases that year. I have one of the lowest case counts for criminal cases of any of the 20 judges serving on the Fulton Superior Court bench. And I have always made it one of my priorities to make sure that we are fair and efficient with everyone's time and respectful of where everyone is coming from. And you mentioned that it can be a re-traumatization to victims in a lot of these criminal cases. And I understand what you are saying with that. I have taken training on being a trauma-informed judge and have talked to my entire staff about being aware of and trying to guard against re-traumatizing any participant in our court system. So thank you for that question.
Ms. Cameron, yes, thank you for that question. And I also am sorry to hear about your loss. And I like you, believe that the delay in handling cases is a re-traumatization of a family because of the fact that they are still waiting for resolution. one of the things that I thought about when you were speaking is whether or not you had been in contact with anyone from victim witness or victim advocate, because that's a way to keep contact of what's going on. And while I do recognize that COVID has caused some of the backlog, I think that what should happen and what should have happened is that these cases, particularly when there are victims involved, should be prioritized, particularly when it comes to the age of the cases and despite COVID, because while yes, the courts have been inoperable for a period of time, there's still people waiting, as well as individuals waiting for resolution on their cases. And so you have a re-traumatization of both, unfortunately, both sides of the family. And so I am aware that the DA has taken on responsibility to move the cases, but in moving cases, the question becomes, how are those cases being resolved? Are they being dismissed? Are the family members of the lost ones being contacted? Are they being consulted? Are they being consoled? And so when I come into the court, it is my responsibility to review these cases and put a prioritization on them to determine how to best resolve these cases, but to also make sure that the families are being contacted with respect to next steps, with respect to your view, your take, your concern about what's happening and what has happened with your family and with your case. So again, I do send you my sincere condolences on your loss, but know that, when I come into office, you will be, someone will reach out to you to make sure that you don't have any further traumatization from this experience.
Thank you so much for those answers. Now, for the edification of the public, can both of you guys, can both of you judges describe for us how is the caseload spread between the judges? How is it determined that this case is going to go to one judge and another case is going to go to another judge? How is that determined?
Well, the judges in this court don't have don't make the decision on who gets what cases. It's sort of like a wheel, so to speak, when the cases come on, the new cases. The only thing that may happen is if, for instance, a judge has to recuse himself from a case that goes to one judge, then that particular judge may transfer one of their cases to you so that the caseloads at least remain the same and not overload one judge or the other. So we don't have a selection or a choice of which cases actually come to us.
Thank you so much. Would you agree with that, Judge Whitaker?
Yeah, so I can expound on that a little bit because I actually currently serve as a Fulton Superior Court judge. I'm a little bit more intimately familiar with the case assignment process. So we have 20 Superior Court judges. 4 of them at any one time are assigned to our family division, which handles divorce cases, custody cases, paternity, child support, things of that nature. Our chief judge handles a civil docket only, and the other 15 judges handle a mixed docket of civil and criminal cases. We do have a random assignment within each of those divisions for family cases, for civil cases, and for criminal cases, but it is a little bit more complicated than just here's the next civil case up on the wheel. It is specified the complexity of different cases. So for instance, a multi-defendant case, all of those would go, before Judge B got a multi-defendant case, Judge A would get one, and then Judge C would get one. Those aren't weighted equally as a single defendant case. Complex criminal cases and complex criminal matters are given a different wheel assignment than the more, I don't want to say simple, but less complex cases. Death penalty cases have their own wheel assignment. So it's broken down about 5 or 6 different ways, but it is a random assignment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question. Now, also, last question about this. Also, for the edification of the public, There are on our ballots, there are 2 races for judges. How are those determined as to like what jurisdiction a judge has? Because we have 2 separate races. So how would residents know if they should be voting?
So for this circuit is the Atlanta Judicial Circuit, and it is the entirety of Fulton County. So cases within Fulton County could go to any of the 20 judges, like I said. So everybody who lives in Fulton County will be voting in the race that is my seat, the seat that I currently hold. And then they will be voting in that second contested race that you mentioned as well. And there are 7 other judges that are up on this time. The other, 13 judges would be up on the next cycle in 2024. But everybody will be able to vote in both of those races.
All right, thank you so much. Judge Pitts, do you have anything to add?
Just a comment. There are 20 judges, but there are only a total of 7 judges who are up for re-election, and 2 of those judges have opposition.
Thank you so much. Now we have a hand from Jewel Johnson. Ms. Johnson, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for both of the judges. One is, how is the chief judge chosen and for what length of time? And I'd like for you to talk about, at one time it was in the media about the Superior Court being, what's the word? I'm looking for the right word for it. I don't want to use the word corrupt, but not being so, what's the right word for it? I'm looking for the right word, that things wasn't going so well. And there was a lawsuit that was filed by other attorneys and citizens. And they were saying that there was a lot of unfair things that were being done by the judges in Superior Court. And I'd like to know if you could expand on that, because what the ruling came out was that they asked the Mr. Howard, who was our he was in charge then, to investigate, and then he turned around and asked the chief judge to investigate. So if you could expand on those 2 for me, I would highly appreciate it. And nothing else happened, but the rumor is still out there that these things are going on in Superior Court.
Judge Pitts, would you like to take that question first?
Well, given that she's talking about a case that could likely be pending, I don't think it's appropriate for me to respond or to that question, especially if it's a case that, as she's indicating, is still pending.
I don't know if it's still pending or not. That was over 2 years ago, okay? But I can say this, I still would like for you to talk about how the chief judge is chosen and for what length of time.
The chief judges are usually voted on by the rest of the Superior Court judges, and their length of time is, if my memory serves me, I think it's for, is it for 2 years? And I have to be honest, I can't recall. And I'm sure Judge Whitaker is going to respond, but I can't recall whether it's 2 years or not. But they're generally chosen by a vote amongst the Superior Court judges, and it is by seniority.
Well, can you speak to the integrity from your standpoint of a judge? That's very important to all of us, because at some time or another, you may have to go before a judge, and I'd like to know what your feelings are about your integrity as a judge.
Well, my philosophy is that everyone that comes into court deserves to be treated fair and equal and with respect and dignity. And so I have the utmost integrity when it comes to any decisions that I'm making or any temperament that I have. I try to make sure that everyone is heard and seen, because I think that's the only way that we can really get down to the root of the problem that someone may be dealing with, and then come to a solution for that person and for the community as a whole. And so when it comes to the court itself, and me in particular, I believe that we need to be compassionate and have empathy when it comes to our ruling and just in dealing with people in general, those people who come before the court, because every court, every case that comes before us is important to that person, be it a civil case, a domestic case, or a criminal case. And so every case needs to be treated fairly, needs to be treated efficiently, and needs to have a thorough and sifting review, so that the persons who are involved are receiving, I guess, equal and fair justice, which is what I stand for.
Thank you so much. I would like to turn this question over to Judge Whitaker. You have the floor.
Sure, thank you. So with regard to the election of the Chief Justice, it is a volunteer position. It used to, a long time ago, be by seniority, but at this point, it is a volunteer. If more than one person wants it, then our bench votes. The term is a 2-year term, and if a judge still has it in them after 2 years to re-up for a second 2-year term, then they are permitted to do that. Again, it's voted on at that point as well. With regard to the investigation that you mentioned, I am unfamiliar with that. You mentioned it was within the last couple of years. I actually worked in the district attorney's office for a while when Mr. Howard was the district attorney, and am not familiar with it from then, and am not also familiar with it now that I serve on the bench. You asked about integrity and personal integrity, particularly as a judge. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, I think that that is one of the most important things for a judge at any level. And I am proud to say that I am the only candidate in this race who has not been cited by our Judicial Ethics Commission for violating the law and the Code of Judicial Conduct while serving as a judge. So I think that it is absolutely critical that if we want to have any kind of faith in our judiciary, that we elect judges who are above reproach and who do not have integrity and ethics problems. Thank you.
And if I may, given that there's the two of us on the Zoom, and there's reference, not necessarily by name, but by inference, I have not been cited by the Judicial Qualifications Commission. My record has been clean from day one. There may have been complaints that were filed, but none have ever been upheld. There is some false information that has been going around the internet that I'm quite aware of. But if you read it thoroughly, and if you contact the state bar, you can find out that I have never received any type of disciplinary action whatsoever from either the attorney side or the judicial side. I've been practicing now for 27 years, and I've been serving as a judge now for 15 years.
Thank you so much. Now, we had an earlier question from Michael Edwards. Mr. Edwards, did you still have a question? All right, we will come back to him. And just as a reminder to those out in the public, if you have any questions, please use the reactions option and raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. And while we wait for questions from the public, there is a process for when residents want to challenge a ruling from a lower city or any other entity for the certiorari process. Now, is that, in your opinion, is that a process that's fair to the citizen that's doing the appeal and also to the city? Judge Whitaker, you have the floor.
I do have experience with that. There are actually a lot of different statutes that cover the various ways that either side, whichever side loses, the city or an individual, can appeal something up from either a magistrate court decision, like an eviction ruling from magistrate court, from a city administrative zoning decision, and or from state agency administrative decisions. And it's a very particular kind of statute, depending upon what court you have been in previously. Some of the standards of review that the Superior Court, acting as an appellate court, utilizes depend upon the statute. So sometimes we do the entire thing over. We hear all of the evidence again, and we make an entirely new decision. Sometimes the statute requires that if there is any evidence to support the decision below, that it has to be upheld. So it's a complicated process, although I will tell you, I am on the State Bar's Board of Governors. I'm an elected member of the governing board for the State Bar. And with the State Bar's support, legislation has just passed in order to simplify the process for some certiorari appeals. But what I do in every case is I try to listen fairly and give everybody an opportunity to be heard, and decide the case based upon the facts that are before me and based upon the law as it is written. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Judge Pitts, would you like to answer that question?
There's really nothing to expound on. I mean, outside of the explanation of the process, there's nothing really to add at this point.
All right, thank you so much. Now, I see your hand raised, Ms. Cameron. Mike Edwards, he is available now. So, Mr. Edwards, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
We hear you fine.
My question is for both judges. My concern is relative to SB 319 that was signed into law by Governor Kemp, that removed the requirements for individuals to have permits to open carry and conceal carry weapons in the state of Georgia. Now, he addressed this as a constitutional carry law, but if you read the Constitution of the United States, what he is claiming is false, because the Constitution clearly states, the Second Amendment states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-regulated militia, is that not what our National Guard is for? So how do you justify saying everybody in this state no longer have to apply for a weapons carry permit? There's no regulation in place to figure out who's carrying and who's not, based upon Kemp's claim that this is a constitutional carry law. That's a lie. And I would like to know what the judge's future proposals towards repealing this law is. Thank you very much.
Judge Pitts, I'll let you have that question.
Well, given that this is a legislation that came through signature by a governor, you know, I generally do not respond to legislative issues, because those cases, if they are brought up on or anything, they come before one of the judges in this court, on the Superior Court. So given that that decision is made in the legislature, the only thing that I would have to do is apply the law and use my discretion when it comes to a decision that I'm going to make within what the law states. The interesting part is, you know, like you said, there are other entities that this could have been given to, and the fact that now we are going to have people, or just anybody, that's going to be walking around with a weapon, you know, given that there's already so much concern about the spike in crime at this point. So it's going to be interesting what we may be faced with as judges when it comes down to possibly additional increase or spike in crime. So I'm not sure that I'm really answering your question because we unfortunately don't make the laws. We just have to be the ones who apply the facts and the law and follow the rule. But we do have discretion when it comes to making our decisions.
Thank you so much, Judge Whitaker. Would you like to answer that question?
Well, I think the question was what the judge's policy was going to be about steps to repeal the law. And based on the way our system of government is set up, essentially, the legislature makes the law and the executive, which is the governor, enforces the law, and the judges rule on the law and interpret the law, but we don't either make or repeal laws. We also, as judges, can't proactively reach out to an issue. It has to be a case that comes before us. I do know that there has been much interest, obviously, in any kind of gun legislation. And I suspect that there will be cases that come before the courts on this and other gun legislation. And as we mentioned at the outset of this call, those type of things are not anything that we as judges under the Code of Judicial Conduct, which I abide by, are permitted to speak on.
Thank you so much. Now, Ms. Cameron, I see your hand. Please unmute yourself. You have the floor.
Yes. So I have a two-part question. My first question is, would either judges take a pay cut so this way the advocates are able to be compensated so we don't have a high turnaround? If we address just the issue of COVID taking place, in 2015, they pulled out a van and had no problem bringing it to where I was staying at. Do you think economically that van should have been pulled out again when COVID took place? Because these families would have stood out longer than voting to speak with the advocate and somebody from the DA's office. But because of COVID, or at least that was the excuse that was used, these families did not get any form of assistance. So I'm really just wanting to know, would you be willing to take a pay cut so these advocates could be compensated so we don't have a high turnaround? Or if we go into another situation with COVID taking place, would they pull out that van again that they pulled out in 2015 to help these families?
Judge Whitaker, would you like to take that question?
So that is kind of a multi-part question. So our pay as judges is decided by both the state legislature and the Fulton County Commission. And the pay for prosecutors and for public defense attorneys is decided as well by both of those entities. And I do know that they are paid equally. I also know that what a Fulton Superior Court judge makes at this point in time is actually less than a lot of first-year attorneys at law firms. But I know that not only is there a difficulty right now getting advocates in the DA's office, there's a difficulty getting attorneys in the DA's office and the public defender's office. There is a difficulty in getting social workers for any of our offices. And it is not really because of the pay as much as it is a kind of a system-wide thing right now with everybody having difficulty getting people staffed. We actually were, all of the court systems across the entire state were granted some COVID relief money. And even with that money, and even with Fulton County paying higher wages than a lot of other counties, we have just all, as a system, had that struggle right now. But victim advocates are absolutely a crucial part of the process. There are statutes that enshrine victims' rights. When I was in the DA's office, I could see firsthand, and I can still see as a judge, the impact that a good victim advocate has. So I share your concern about that.
Ms. Cameron, when you're talking about pay cuts, to answer specifically, it's what I would consider doing, because I mentioned the victims advocates earlier when you talked about your situation. You know, if it's my pay, I can easily create a budget based on the needs that I see within the court or within my specific court, so that we can make sure that your concern could be addressed. The victims advocates, which I mentioned earlier, you know, should be the ones who are reaching out to you, and I don't know that it's for lack of pay, because I think about that along with representation, people having proper representation. And I bring that up because, you know, there has been an issue or concern with lack of representation as well. And so I think this goes along with the victims advocates office as well, the victims advocates not reaching out. When it comes to a pay cut, as you heard, how the pay is distributed, but, you know, I can create a budget within my own to try to address some of the issues or some of the concerns that you're speaking of. But
if I may just jump in real fast, because I don't want there to be a misunderstanding. We actually do not, as judges, have the ability to do whatever we want with our budget money, and it would in fact be improper to provide judicial money to the victim advocates positions, because victim advocates are a part of the DA's office, and that is a part of the executive branch of government and not the judicial branch of government. I know that seems weird because they practice in the judicial branch, but there's a separation of powers issue with that, and there is nowhere near the control one might think over our budgets in order to create positions. We have very discreetly structured positions which we are allowed to have and to fund with our judicial budgets.
And as I was stating, Ms. Cameron, I believe that there can be some things that can be addressed within, and I wasn't identifying them as victims advocates, but there could be some things that could be addressed so that your concerns can be heard, at least through the court. And there's no reason why, as you know, when it comes to budget, but there's no reason why there couldn't be a conversation between the judge and the district attorney's office with regards to allowing them to make sure that there's someone from their victims advocates office reaching out to you to address your concerns.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna pass it to Ron Booth for the South Fulton Coalition. Do you have any questions?
I do, and thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
This question is for both judges. Many of us do not understand the complete role of a Superior Court judge. So can you tell us a little bit about what a Superior Court judge is responsible for and how they work in the role of our community, number one? And then secondly, why are you the best candidate for that position as Superior Court judge?
Judge Whitaker, you can take that question first.
Thank you very much. So the Fulton Superior Court and all of the superior courts in our state are jury trial courts. We handle all of the felony criminal cases in all of Fulton County and all of its various cities. We also handle, like I said before, divorce, custody, child support, paternity, adoption matters, and that's something exclusive to the superior courts. And we handle anything having to do with real estate, anything having to do with zoning issues like zoning appeals, tax appeals, anything that is what's called equity, and that would be like an injunction to, say, stop the cutting down of a 300-year-old oak tree, or stop the hospital from unplugging your great grandmother, or force the hospital to unplug your great grandmother, those kind of issues. And we also handle all sorts of high level civil matters, businesses suing businesses, you suing your roofer, somebody getting hurt in an auto accident, somebody alleging medical malpractice or any kind of malpractice. So the kind of civil cases that one might be able to think about. With regard to our involvement in the community, it's very important for me to be involved in the community. I'm the member of and a leader in many different bar organizations, including the State Bar of Georgia. I am also an adjunct professor at one of the law schools here in Georgia. I teach law school students, and I have coached mock trial and moot court at the high school, college, and law school levels. I volunteer with my church. I have, we do a Fulton County Day of Service, and I like to do a whole lot more service than that with the Georgia Association of Women Lawyers and with other charity organizations. I do community service, and I have gone to schools and spoken to students. I think that we need to stay engaged in all areas of the community so that we know what's going on and what people's concerns are. And while we cannot reach out and take a case, we are able to serve on boards and let people's concerns be heard in that way, and try to work towards greater justice in those kind of areas as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Judge Pitts, you have the floor.
Yes, in addition to the cases that were mentioned, Superior Court also handles domestic cases. In fact, Fulton County is the only county that has a specialized family division where the divorce and domestic cases are heard. And along with domestic cases, they hear issues that involve domestic violence, such as the protective orders. But when it comes to and let me mention that I actually worked as one of the judicial officers and a magistrate in Fulton County Superior Court Family Division for 4.5 years. So I'm very much aware of the cases that come through with respect to the family division. And by doing so, I've sat by designation in both state and Superior Court as a magistrate. So I've heard some of the criminal matters with respect to first appearance and bond hearings. Similar to what I've done through municipal court as well for the past 15 years. When you're talking about the connection to the community, I do think that it's important that the people and the judges who sit on this bench have a connection to the community, because that is the only way that we can know what's actually going on in the community and to be able to address the issues that face the community. When you're talking about the actual connection, so through the Gate City Bar Association, we do something called Journey to Judge, which is an opportunity for us to speak with teens about essentially our journey to this position. And it gives them an opportunity to ask questions about how we've done or what their options are, and to just be somewhat of mentors of sorts. Also, I've conducted several mock trials as well as moot court competitions, participated in moot court competitions as a judge. But more recently, I did a mock trial for an elementary school class that was quite interesting. And I've done two things one thing that I had never done before, which was created a video for an elementary school class that addressed exactly what judges do. And it's on, and I say elementary because it's on an elementary level in such that anyone will be able to understand. I was asked to do that a few weeks ago, and so I just presented it to the teacher. So I'm really interested to find out how it was received by the class. Also, I've done forums and programs through church and other means offering the public to come in and ask questions in regards to what judges do. But one of the things that I always have done is invite anyone to come into court, at least when it was open, so that they can actually get a feel on what goes on in court. And then I've allowed them to ask questions in the end. And so sort of like a day in the life of a judge, kind of a shadowing of a judge. I've had panel discussions again about different issues, such as the last one we did was, I believe it was the year before COVID, and it had to do with teens particularly having interaction with law enforcement. So it gave them an idea of how they should respond. We had law enforcement, we had the mayor, we had attorneys, we had two brothers who created somewhat of an animated book, and they were able to present that. And it wasn't as elementary as what I just mentioned with the video, but it was in a way that could, again, easily be understood by anyone. And then lastly, I actually created a video for the general public for when they come into court, particularly municipal court, so that they can see how the court is run. And, even though, I'm not the current sitting judge in Superior Court, I'm very intimately involved in the community as a judge. And it doesn't matter whether I'm municipal or superior, but just being involved in the community is very important. Again, I've been connected to this community for the past 30 plus years, having moved here, more than 30 years ago. I won't say how long because I want you to add up any numbers and try to figure out how young I am. But either way, I think it's important that the judges are accessible, that we are out in the community, and that people get to know who we are. Because again, that's the only way that we can really address the concerns that face the community.
Thank you so much. Now, Ron Booth, I see you have your hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you. And thank you both for those responses. They were excellent. This next question for Judge Whitaker. If you are reelected, what changes, if any, do you plan to make for the good of the office of Superior Court Judge? And then for Judge Pitts, if you are elected, what changes, if any, do you plan to make for the good of the office of Superior Court Judge? Starting with Judge Whitaker, please.
Thank you. So I mentioned my devotion to fairness and to efficiency, as well as we have been through COVID, and I have had the honor of serving as a trial court judge before, during, and now coming out of COVID. I've been able to see some of the things that have made our court more efficient. So I would continue to engage with those. For instance, just like we are here meeting on Zoom tonight, we have been able to have court proceedings via Zoom and other video conferencing efforts. And there are certainly some of those that I would continue, because to permit a lawyer, if they need to be in my courtroom for 10 minutes to answer a calendar call, to allow them to do that by Zoom instead of 45 minutes to the courthouse, parking, getting through security, coming in, waiting while other cases go on, and then, back the same way, and having to either take up a couple of hours of that judge's or that attorney's time or be paid for that by a client is not the most efficient way to run things. So I, look at that as kind of a silver lining of COVID. My criminal caseload is already run very effectively and efficiently, and I am going to credit my staff for that as well. I have a fantastic staff that have been with me for a long time. But I have seen that in my civil cases, there is room for improvement. And on those cases, I would like to use the benefit of Zoom to touch base with those attorneys and be able to see what it is that they might need from the court in the way of rulings or guidance on discovery issues or anything like that as the case is moving along. Because there are proven studies about if judges touch, if you will, cases more frequently, that they move through the court system more efficiently. So I've already talked to my staff about engaging in a review and looking at some of that as we move forward. And I'll tell you, I've had a suggestion box in my courtroom and in my jury room the entire time I've been on the bench. And I like to hear from what the public, from what lawyers, and from what the parties in a case think about ways that we can improve. So that's another way that I get some ideas.
Thank you. Judge Pitts.
Yes, so being the newly elected judge, I would need to review the caseload to find out where, what cases, as far as backlog, what cases are older, so that I can make priority. When I first started practicing law, I took a lot of court-appointed cases. And so what we did, in addition, even as a private attorney, we used to do a lot of pretrial with the DA's office, with the ADAs that were handling the cases. And so I would create a system that's very similar to what we had before, and even very similar to what is happening with the family division. The cases are reviewed on a regular basis so that they don't fall through the cracks. And I think this would also address the earlier issue of concern that we had with respect to cases still lingering and families being further traumatized because they're still pending. I think that it's important that the cases are ordered by priority in terms of victim crimes, in terms of level of severity, and in terms of complex versus non-complex, so that those cases don't linger. And so with respect to any cases, be it a criminal case or a civil case, I would make sure to put a pretrial type program in place, which I've already started thinking about, in fact, in addition to the prioritizing of the cases. Yes, we have learned to pivot during COVID, given that we could not go into the courthouse for several months, but in all of the courts that I served, we were not out very long. We initially or immediately started handling cases either by Zoom or by Microsoft Teams, which I had never used either before. And so it's a very efficient way to handle cases so that people aren't coming into court, particularly with respect to people who work. It's so much easier for someone to hop on a Zoom call, be it on their phone or on their computer, if they're at work. And even now, we've allowed that. And so we see that cases can be heard, and even some can be resolved in the same form. It would eliminate the need probably for some of the warrants that may come when people don't appear in court. So what we've seen is how much more efficient any type of virtual platform could be in resolving, or at least hearing these cases, so that they don't linger and that they don't create a further backlog that we've seen prior to COVID and then subsequent to COVID.
Thank you both for those responses. And I really appreciate you considering Zoom and Microsoft Teams as forums. I'm sure a lot of people that don't have to pay for parking would appreciate that as well. This next question is for both candidates also, and it comes from Ms. Marcia Still. She wants to know, do you have any problems hearing cases involving police-involved deaths?
When you're talking about police-involved deaths, are you referring to an officer having been accused of causing the death of someone? Is that my understanding?
Why don't we assume so? And if
Okay.
not, Marcia, let me know. And she said yes, so yeah.
Okay, and not that it matters, because either way, as an officer of the court, I need to set aside any biases that I may have and hear the cases that are before me. And the only thing I can say is that I would be fair in my ruling. I will make sure that I hear both sides and apply the proper law to the facts of the case. I also believe that the person, we need to look at the person as a whole so that we can know what's going on, what happened, and not just what's before us. We need to look at people as a whole, because I always think about, people come to us as a whole, not just their circumstances. And so we need to look at their backgrounds. We need to look at their lifestyles. We need to look at the things that they've dealt with. to make the best decisions. But specifically answering that question, I would not have any problem hearing a case, any case that comes before me. Again, we don't pick and choose which cases come to us. The only issue that may come for me is if I am intimately involved or have any type of relationship, not necessarily intimate relationship, but any type of relationship where I feel the need to recuse myself. But besides that, I would hear every case and give every case their due process and hear all the facts and apply the proper law.
Thank you so much. Judge Whitaker, would you like to take that question?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Obviously, some things have come to light in the last several years that have been a shock to some and not a shock to others. Things that should never happen. We all, as members of society, are given the presumption of innocence if we are ever charged with a crime. And as a judge, I would respect that. I also have been in criminal prosecution for a very long part of my career before I was a judge. And I have been involved in the prosecution of police officers for crimes up to and including murder. I have also been involved in investigations where it was determined that no crime had occurred and officer involved shootings. We are aware as society that we give these powers to police officers and we expect them to use them appropriately. Split-second decisions sometimes have to be made, and officers are putting their lives on the line every day to protect the rest of the members of society. So in any given case, it's really going to come down to what the facts of that case are. But that's absolutely something that as a Superior Court judge, we may be called upon to do, is preside over a trial of that case. And that's something that I am ready to do, listening carefully to the evidence and applying the law.
Thank you so much. It doesn't look like we have any additional questions in the chat. So at this time, we would like to start the conclusion by starting with closing remarks. So Judge Pitts, we will give you the floor. You have 3 minutes for your closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So again, thank you for inviting me to share my views on why I'm best suited for this Fulton County Superior Court position. I thank everyone for the questions, and I hope that tonight I've earned your trust as a Superior Court judge and your vote in this election cycle. Fulton County is one of the busiest and most important courts in Georgia, and decisions which affect the lives of everyday citizens are decided here, as well as decisions that impact our government and how it operates, which also impacts our community more broadly. It's because this court is one of the most important in our state that the people of this county should decide who sits in that seat and not a decision that's made by a governor. I'm running because I am passionate and dedicated to rebuilding the community's trust in our justice system. With my experience in life, practice, and as a judge for more than 15 years, I know firsthand that everyone, not just the privileged and the powerful, but everyone deserves fairness and justice in our legal system. And with my diverse background in life and in practice, I am the best qualified judge to serve all of Fulton County. As a judge, I promise to balance the needs of all who are involved in a civil, criminal, or domestic relations case. Because I said earlier, each case is important to those who appear before me. I will treat everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are. And I will also make certain that everyone is treated fairly and that I am patient and listen to everyone. And yes, we've all heard the news, and many are worried about the spike in crime across Fulton County. And so I will be a judge who sentences fairly, but who will also look at addressing those root cause issues which may spur an individual to commit a crime. I believe that everyone working in the justice system has the opportunity and responsibility to work together towards a solution to address the issues that face our communities. I'm prepared to put in the long hours necessary to address any backlog cases while also addressing the new cases. Not afraid of the hard work that's ahead of me, and after all, being a public servant is the heart of who I am. And I will be ready day one to start the work. I have been connected to and serving this community since moving here well over 30, I want to say how many years, but well over 30 years ago. And being endorsed by people who are part of the community means that they have put their trust in me and that they know as an elected judge, I will do the work and be accountable to the people, the voters who put me in office. For these reasons, I ask for your early vote or for your vote on May 24th to serve as your Fulton County Superior Court judge. So please visit my website at electjudgeallisonpitts.com. And Allison is spelled Allison. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll turn it over to Judge Whitaker. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for putting this forum together for us, and thank all of you for participating in it and for being informed voters. That means a lot because it is important who we elect to every office, including our judges. And for every office, including for our judges, experience, integrity, and fairness matter. I am the only candidate for this position with experience as a Superior Court judge, both before, during, and now coming out of the COVID pandemic. I am the only candidate who has been elected to be a judge at any level of judgeship. I am the only candidate with any experience presiding over jury trials, which is particularly important as we come out of this pandemic. I am the only candidate who has not been found by the Judicial Qualifications Commission to have violated the Code of Judicial Conduct and violated the law while serving as a judge. I have a proven record of fairness as a Superior Court judge, and fairness to me, there's a lot I cannot promise, but I promise you that in every case, fairness to me means following the law and doing it with equity and with understanding, listening carefully to both sides in every case, and treating everyone who comes before me with respect. It may mean different things in different cases, but I will give my individual attention. I will follow the law in every case. I have a proven record of integrity and fairness as a Superior Court judge, which is why I have support from across all sectors of the Fulton County community, across party lines, across racial and economic lines, from prosecutors and from defense attorneys, from hundreds and hundreds of attorneys who have appeared before me, because they know that I am fair to everyone, that I know the law, and that I will follow the law. I want to thank you for your support in the past and ask you for your continued support in your vote to re-elect me to continue as your Fulton Superior Court judge for the next 4 years. My website is keepjudgewhitaker.com, and I invite you to look there for more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. And I'd like to go ahead and close everything out. Thank you everyone for attending this meeting. A recording of this town hall will be available later on our website, either later tonight or tomorrow. We'd like you to please consider joining South Fulton Coalition. I'll type our web address into the chat in just a second. Our next town hall is tomorrow, and it's titled The 411 on Retention Ponds, Redistricting, excuse me, I got tongue-tied, and elections. The speaker is Ms. Khadija Abdur Raham, and that'll start at 7 o'clock. And I'd like to give a big thank you to Judge Pitts and Judge Whitaker for taking time from your campaigns to speak with us tonight. Have a blessed evening, everyone. And don't forget, early voting continues through Friday, May 20th, and Election Day is May 24th. Please vote. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.